Are you ready?
Hello, and welcome to the Whole House Podcast, where you can find home, health, and family all in one place. Our team is comprised of moms from different upbringings and backgrounds, and we each have different passions and giftings and strengths. We each represent a different room, and we all make up the whole house. So grab a cup of coffee and join our overly caffeinated ladies here for the Whole House Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Whole House Podcast. Today is Kathleen.
And Jessica.
And today, Jessica has picked a topic, so I'm going to let her introduce it.
I wanted to speak about back to school blues for stay-at-home moms and the importance of volunteerism. So I have a little quote here that I would just want to start with that says, volunteering, that moment when you forget you're volunteering to help change the lives of other people because it is changing your own life.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it does change your whole life. It changes your perspective, especially if you're in a season of circumstantial depression, not necessarily chemical imbalance, but just woe is me, and you start volunteering and you take your eyes off yourself.
Absolutely.
And you get your eyes on the needs of your community.
What made me go to the back to school blues aspect of this was if you are a stay-at-home mother who doesn't necessarily have to go to work and you choose to stay at home and all of your children are school-aged and they are in school, that can be a difficult transition period for a mother. They go from their house being maybe chaotic 24 hours a day to complete silence. You go from one schedule, one routine to completely having maybe, I want to say nothing to do, but it can feel as if you have nothing to do because nobody is asking you for anything. Your days are quiet, and that can lead to a season of situational depression.
Right, and you get your house clean in 1 hour, and then you're kind of like,
what do I do? Yes.
Now what?
So it's back to school time of the year here where we are located, so that's what brought that up to me. I know personally I am really codependent on my children when they are home. I love to have them home. I hate looking forward to school starting and them not being in the house and my house being quiet. I'm going to be the worst empty nester that ever empty nested. So I do not look forward to that. So I had those times where I just didn't feel like I had a purpose. My daughter went to kindergarten. Sure, the days at first would go by quickly, but then they started to drag. Like Kathleen said, you get your house clean, your laundry's done, everything is taken care of, and you just can fall into a slump, I will call it. And for me personally, I think that falling into slumps like that is just a window of opportunity to let the enemy try to infiltrate you and your situation. So if that door is cracked open whatsoever, he can wiggle his way right in there. And if you're not mindful or cautious of that situation before you know it, and I'm not saying that this happens with everybody or that volunteering takes this away, but it can lead to ungodly or trigger ungodly feelings and actions. It can maybe make you feel a little not just depressed, but lonely. It can bring on loneliness, and it can bring on just a slew of different things. And
it can cause you, it doesn't cause you, but it can tempt you to cross the line in some areas, especially if you have an obsessive, compulsive kind of personality.
Absolutely.
And then you're sitting there with nothing to do, and next thing you know, you're shopping compulsively at Target or online, or you're eating compulsively.
Yep.
Or maybe you have a glass of wine and then another glass and then another glass and then another glass.
And that's what I was thinking this morning. I slept compulsively. I slept compulsively. A lot of
people do that. Like I've talked to a lot of women about even their mothers growing up. Their mothers would sleep. And that's kind of how they handled the day while their children were gone in school. And then when the kids came home, then the routine started, but she would sleep during the day.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and I think that exactly it can trigger that ungodly temptations that we may put aside if we're busy, if we keep ourselves busy, our mind busy, our heart full. So that's why I wanted to speak about this. I think personally I fell into that trap. I know I said that I slept compulsively, but I actually I think that's when my transition to my addiction to social media began, and I would also compulsively be on that for hours at a time for no purpose whatsoever. And then before you know it, 2 hours has passed and you actually have done absolutely nothing of any value.
And you don't even realize that 2 hours have passed. Like Joyce Meyer, I was listening to her this week, and she was talking about at the end of her day, she'll kind of review, like, what did I invest in? How did I spend my time? And it can be shocking if you're not used to, like, really sitting down and writing down what you did, or just even thinking about what you did.
Yes.
And how many hours you did this particular thing. And if you have a block of time during the middle of the day, let's say you have 5 or 6 hours of time, you can spend that very frivolously and have no fruit or reward for that time. If you're on social media, if you're sleeping, if you're eating, or if you're just compulsively cleaning.
Yes, that's another one too. Yes.
And I know sometimes when I clean, I'm just like, I see this thing and then I clean that and then I move to the next thing and then I go back and I'm like randomly cleaning everything, and then I realized, wait a minute, like 5 hours had passed. I didn't want to clean for 5 hours.
Right. And I know that God had another purpose for me besides just scrolling through a timeline for those 5 hours.
Right, and just going like.
Or, you'd end up
reading.
Yeah, 8 comments deep on somebody's page that you've never even heard of. And
you're like, I'm going to answer this.
Yes, and you're looking at these people arguing on social media, and I spent a lot of time wasted in that way as well. And I'm going to speak at the gathering. The gathering, by the time that this podcast comes out, may have already passed. But what I'm going to speak out at the gathering is about low self-esteem. When I was isolated in that situation and I didn't put myself out there, that only fed that low self-esteem that I had, because then I would self-loathe because I had wasted 6 hours and got nothing done. So I felt like an unproductive member of society. I felt like an unproductive mother, or I felt like an unproductive wife. Not to say that that's the case, but that is just the way that door opened up for that enemy to slither right on in. So it just stacked itself.
Right,
on top of one of the
so you just burst a myth.
Yes.
Because women often believe this myth that, I can't go out in public and do anything until I have it all together.
Right.
Until I'm in shape and I'm eating right. And then once I get myself perfected, then I will go out there into society and do my thing. And that's not what happens.
No, not at all.
Because when you isolate, then you're feeding all of those weaknesses.
Yes.
And you're feeding all of those thoughts that can lead into really deep, dark places. So when you were isolating, you were getting yourself deeper and darker. So what finally brought you out into the light?
Well, I knew that I wasn't living a life that was serving any purpose, not only for God himself, but for my children. I never felt good, and I know it's because I wasn't living up to my body's full potential. By sleeping all day away, I wasn't nourishing myself the way that, I needed to be nourished. I wasn't getting enough sunlight that I needed to get. Just every aspect. I was hiding. And once I finally, I don't want to say I had an aha moment. I've always been a go-getter. My grandfather actually nicknamed me that at a very young age. I actually have a t-shirt somewhere that he had made that says go-getter. So I wanted to get back to just feeling like a human being again. I mean, yes. I felt like a slug in a dark place in my house. And I just wanted to see daylight, and I just wanted to be involved. And what actually got me out of that is when the kids started, bringing papers home from school, and they needed somebody to work at the library for an hour or two. And I thought, well, I'll be by myself there. I won't really have to, converse a lot with
Right.
anybody in the library, so I can go and I can put books away. Well, that led to another opportunity to volunteer at the school, and I spent a lot of elementary school years when they were in school putting my time there.
Right, and let's just face it, the schools need help. They don't get enough funding. I mean, I have a teaching degree and I homeschooled my kids, but I have a lot of educators in my family besides myself, and I know for sure that they could use all the help that they can get. So if
Absolutely.
you're sitting there thinking, all my kids are now in school, I don't have anything to do, then go to the school and ask them what you can do. And when my eldest daughter was in school, the public school down the street from us, and she didn't continue there because we moved, but it was a great little school, and I was on this little board where it was some teachers and the principal and then some parents, and we got to just make decisions for the school, and it was great because they took our input. But they need your help.
Absolutely.
They need it. They need you to be there. They need you to help them out because they're literally swamped with teaching your kids all day and then grading their papers at night and making up their lesson plans.
Well, that's what I was gonna touch on too. With the school, the educators are doing the best that they absolutely can.
Right.
But there are so many children in the society that we live in today that come from hard places
Yes.
that there is no way that they would be able to give every single child that needed a little bit of extra attention, that little bit of extra attention, no
Right.
matter how hard they work at it.
Right.
So for me, when I would go in there and I would volunteer, whether it was filing books or filing papers or whatever, I would see, you may think, like my kid don't need me there, my kid don't need me there, they got everything they need from me, but some other kid may need you there.
Right.
I ended up working at a school store. The kids got rewarded with fake money that they could come and spend at the store to buy
Okay.
pencils or paper or whatever they needed. And I got to know these kids.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did it benefit me in the sense that I got to know the children that my children were surrounded with, but I got to know these children and what they needed. And I made it a point every single day that no matter what child I came into contact with, I would say, have a great day. Because I thought, there are kids out there that don't hear that.
Exactly.
I say goodbye to my children every day. I say, have a great day, or see you when you get home. I love you.
Yeah.
There are kids that do not get
I
that
don't hear that.
at all.
They come to school hungry for emotional
Yes.
healing
Yes.
and for physical healing all at the same time. Like they're hungry and they don't have anybody on their side, and it is so sad, and it's even more now than it was
Yes.
when we were younger and going to school, because there's just so many things.
Right, and I watched a documentary the other day, or touch on this just real briefly, but it says that 86% of CPS cases today, which have tripled in the last 4 years, are substance abuse cases.
Wow.
So if that's 86%,
Gee whiz.
and it's tripled over the last 4 years, imagine how many kids are still in a situation where they haven't been rescued or they're not saying anything. So I thought to myself, it opened up my eyes. I thought if I could just be that one face that kid looks forward to seeing,
Right.
they know that it's going to be a staple in their day where you say, have a great day. And that changes the way that they see their surroundings, their world, whatever. I can offer them that. And that goes to another point that I had wrote down in my notes. My husband and I, it's important for us both to volunteer. And you can get sidetracked and think that, oh, I have to have a lot of money to volunteer to make a
Right.
difference.
Right.
So we always sat down and said, you know what? Even if we only have, this much money to give to this charity, we have our time.
Exactly.
So if we can't donate funds, we can donate our time.
And often time is more important than money to these organizations or schools or whatever that need
Right.
help.
Yes.
They need bodies. They need people who can be there and be present and and help and be a smiling face.
Yeah.
And be a positive influence. I come from a volunteering family. I was just telling Jessica before we started recording, my parents, my stepfather and my mom, we moved to West Virginia when my stepfather retired from the military. We moved from Colorado because my mom wanted to serve the poor in West Virginia because she was born in Richwood, West Virginia. And so they opened a food pantry and a clothes closet where we gave out weekly food orders. And so I spent a lot of time in high school and in college and beyond going to the day-old bread store and counting bread and doing those kinds of things. And so I grew up with that kind of mentality, and I'm glad because it's important. One of my points was to get your kids involved.
Yes.
And I know you're going to talk about that because it's important that our kids see us volunteering and that we bring them along
Absolutely.
when we can so that they can be part of that too, because it becomes part of their worldview.
It does, and if your household, the people inside your confined walls and you think that everything is okay, you're good. Your marriage is good. Your finances are good. You're good. They need to see that not everything outside of their walls is okay.
Right.
And that just by donating a little bit of your time, you can make a huge difference. And especially with teenagers, that can knock them down a peg or two.
Right. They learn, because I remember one of my daughters going to a weekend event, and they were just, all these teens were just sharing about what their family life was like, and she was talking about eating dinner together and playing games together, and some of these other teens were like, what?
Right.
We never do that at our house.
Yeah.
And she was just astounded. She was just like, well, I thought everybody ate dinner together. I thought everybody played board games and did these. And then I remember another incident where my daughter, a teen was over here, and everybody was making tea. We have tons of tea. We have all the different kinds of tea, and she didn't know how to make tea because they had never done those kind of things at her house. So, it just opens up their eyes, and I think one part of volunteerism that's really important to me is hospitality, opening up your own home and bringing people in that maybe wouldn't normally come to your home unless you reach out to them.
Right.
Like it's ministering to them and making them feel special and making them feel loved, and it might be something that they've never experienced before. One of my eldest daughter's friends, Stephen, they went to college together. He was in the hospital during finals, so he didn't get to take his finals, and he came back to the university and stayed with us when they let him come in and take all of his finals. And he said something to me that was just astounding. He said, you guys, I'm from a big family too, but you guys you're different. You're not like us at all. And I said, in what way? And he said, well, at my house, everybody goes to their own rooms and just has their electronics. At your house, you guys get together and have discussions and play games. And so that's another way of volunteering, just opening up your home, being hospitable to people, and you don't know how it's going to impact them.
Absolutely.
You have no idea. So I'll let you get back to your...
No, those are very good points, because it creates a sense of empathy.
Yes.
That your children may not get any other way, because if they're going to school, they're sitting with their social circle. You want them to explore outside of their social circle, because if one group doesn't socialize with the other group, that causes a drift. Nobody will ever understand where the other person is coming from, and it creates, which we wanted to talk about, a community that does not understand one another. Right. That's when you come into major issues. So you may stand here and think, my one little 30-minute active volunteerism is not going to make a difference. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to keep myself isolated in my little corner of my room. It could blow your mind as what it could snowball into for not just you, not just your family, but your entire community.
Right.
And that word kept popping up every time I kept looking for a quote or anything. Once I knew that this is what I wanted to talk about, was community, community, community. And Kathleen, wanted to say that we were created for the sense of community.
Right. That's
and
how
we
God created us.
And we crave it. Mm-hmm. We need it.
Right. And sometimes it's kind of like your body, when your body is craving ice cream and you think, okay, body, that's not really what I need right now. Our body is craving community, and maybe you're not craving spinach and your body needs spinach, but once you eat the spinach, then you start craving the spinach.
Right.
And it's the same with community. You can isolate yourself, and it's like the ice cream. I'm just giving myself the ice cream, and then you feel bloated and horrible and terrible. But once you start investing in community, then you start craving it, because that's what you need. That's what you're created for. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Right. Once you see that slither of a difference in either them or you,
right,
you're going to want to continue that. And then it, just like I said, it snowballs into a group of people that now you have found your people. And then those people bring in more people. And it's just like, hey, what are we doing here, man? This is awesome.
Right.
We're smiling at each other. We're just saying, hey, have a great day, as we're handing a kid a pencil.
Right. And the amazing thing is, when you're serving like that, you lose track of yourself.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not thinking, is my hair look good? You know what I mean? You take that focus off yourself, and you're just so involved in what is going on at the moment. You're so present in that moment. You forget yourself.
No, and you see that, you see the world outside of your phone screen.
Yes.
You see the world outside of your sorrow, outside of your low self-esteem. You're like, absolutely nobody is caring about this fat that is jiggling on the back of my arm when I am serving you and making your heart happy.
Exactly.
Nobody is thinking of that. Nobody cares. I'm here. I'm a body. I'm smiling. That is what is important.
Right.
The love that is inside of my heart that I can pour into your cup is what is important the most.
Exactly.
And it can be a really, really time to self-reflect and really change your life. I wanted to read the 8 reasons why it's important to volunteer. And that was one of them, is that it will change you maybe more than it changes the other person, because it just makes you feel good. Now, is everybody going to be receptive to your eagerness to volunteer? No. And you may get rejected, and you may have somebody who's ungrateful for the services that you have to offer them. But that shouldn't change your heart, because that's not going to be the sense every time.
Right. Don't take a door slamming in your face, not physically, but when people say, no, I don't want your services, or I don't want you to come help, I don't want you to come and do this training. Just... shake the dust off your feet and walk away, but keep going, keep asking. If God has given you a gift or a training or something that will help other people, and it's not to glorify yourself, it's to help other people, then you keep asking and asking and asking.
Absolutely.
And keep praying that God will open the door.
So here was number 1, volunteers work willingly together for the betterment of their communities and themselves. So, community, there's that word again. Yes. It really does. I mean, it's an absolute amazing feat to create a community or to become part of a community, especially if you're isolated or you feel like you're alone. And I know that can happen to stay-at-home moms. Like I said at the beginning, when your children leave, you're like, whoa, what is going on? What am I even supposed to do? You don't need to work. You don't want to work. You just want to, it can give you purpose. Number 2, volunteers play a vital role in the improvement of our society. So you're not volunteering to dismantle anything.
Right.
In the sense of your community or in the sense of your society. You're creating something that your society is lacking.
Exactly. You're not going out there and marching against
right.
something.
Yeah.
You're doing something that is going to fulfill a need in your community.
Volunteering is a positive force that can make the world a better place for everyone. That just goes back to number 2. I mean, you're creating an improvement for the society that is needed.
Right.
And there's all different ways to volunteer. You know, when people think, oh man, I don't want to serve at a soup kitchen, or I don't want to take lunches to the homeless people underneath the bridge, we're not saying that you have to do that or that's your route of volunteerism that you need to take. Maybe there's a mother in your community that is struggling to even leave her house. She's sick, or she can't shop, or whatever the case may be. Seek that kind of stuff out.
Right. There's all kinds of things. You can volunteer at the Pregnancy Resource Center. There might be a teen pregnant person who needs rides to doctor's appointments.
Right.
So, you know, there's all kinds of different ways, and all you have to do is pray, God, show me what I can do. And the thing is, God has given you strengths for a reason.
Yes.
We always, in the Christian faith, we're always talking about our weaknesses. And yes, we have weaknesses, and God can be strong in those weaknesses. But at the same time, He's given you strengths and gifts. And He can use those to help in areas that you are going to feel like, hey, this is amazing. I can do this.
Right.
I might be tired, I might be exhausted, but it's a good tired and it's a good exhaustion at the end of the day because you've done something.
Right.
And you feel good about that. And if you feel like, well, I don't have any strengths, well, that's not true. Because everybody has strengths. And I think that sometimes in the Christian community, we put way too much emphasis on what are your weaknesses? We can list those like that.
Yeah.
But sit down. I mean, take a moment, sit down and write your strengths. Like, write down what you like to do.
Right.
Do you like to paint? Do you like to work out? Do you like to walk? I know Lori hosted a walking group this summer. You know, there's so many different ways. There's not just a one-size-fits-all way of volunteering. There's so many different ways.
And I think somehow it got construed into like nitty-gritty work. You know what I mean?
Right.
You think that if you're going to volunteer, you're going to go and build a porch for somebody or a house or, you know, pick up trash or something that somebody else doesn't want to do. Yeah, and that's not the case. That's not the case at all. There's tons of things you can do. The next point is volunteering alleviates stress and can have a positive impact on your health. And I think that's so important because of what you said earlier about how when you're focused on just that task of volunteering, the world quiets.
Yes.
And I think that that's how we were made to live.
Yes.
We weren't made to constantly think about what our schedule is tomorrow or what our schedule is tonight or next week. Live in the moment. I think volunteering really presents that opportunity to, because I don't know about you, but the last time I volunteered, I wasn't able to check my phone when I was in the midst of it. I didn't have my phone glued to my face. The last time I really volunteered for a significant amount of time was at Bible school, and 3 hours went by like that. I was in the craft room. I had no idea what was going on. There was glue everywhere.
You didn't know the world was still going.
I didn't. But we were having a good time making macaroni, whatever we were making. And I mean, those kids were happy, and I left feeling so rewarded. And it's almost horrible that you have to come out of that sense. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It almost becomes a bubble. But it is. It's good for your health because you're not in that constant state of frantic stress that the American way brings onto your shoulders.
Exactly. And the culture that we live in is just, you know, it's constant. What's next? What's next?
Yes.
And when you get into that zone of serving, then you're right. You know, you can't look at your phone. You set everything else aside and you just have a blast. I know the whole house, we have a coffee hour during the school year, just once a month. And I feel that way then, you know, all these ladies, we all get together, we have a topic, we're drinking coffee, we're eating whatever, cinnamon rolls or whatever I make. And then I realize people are saying, oh, I have to go. Like, wait, it's noon already?
Right.
How can it be noon already?
Yeah.
And so if you think, wait a minute, hospitality is the way I would like to volunteer because I love hosting, I love having people to my home, then that is a way that you can volunteer. It, like she said, it doesn't have to be Habitat for Humanity. If you are that, then God bless you.
Right.
I know a friend of mine is doing that right now, and she loves it. You give me a nail gun, and yeah, I'll go at it, but you probably won't like where the nails go.
Right. And that's the thing. Even if you like volunteering or volunteerism, you don't have to use that definition. You don't have to leave your house. Maybe you live in a neighborhood, a subdivision, and that inviting women over for a cup of coffee one day a week to converse saves that one woman in that group from picking up that bottle of wine.
Yes, exactly. You never know. That's why I say take some time.
Yeah.
Write down your strengths. And that what that means is, what do you like to do?
Yeah.
What do you start doing and you just totally lose track of time while you're doing that? Because that's kind of your zone. And if you can figure out a way to use that zone to help other people, then that's where you need to go. That's your niche. You need to pursue that. Even if doors slam in your face, you just keep going.
Right.
Keep asking.
Because there will be somebody that needs that strength.
Right.
Because that is their weakness.
Exactly.
Yeah. The next point is knowing that you made a positive impact on someone is emotionally uplifting experience, not matched by money or fame. So,
Amen.
Yes, I know, right? So you can be chasing whatever you're chasing. I can tell from experience, nothing is going to make you feel the way that a smile from another person who you have touched their heart makes you feel.
Right, and that's what Solomon says. Like Solomon, who is the richest man ever on the face of the earth, he said all is vanity because he sought that. He had so many wives, I don't even know how many, like lots and lots of wives, and he had all the wealth, he had everything, even all the wisdom.
Yeah.
And still, none of those things satisfied him because he was pursuing the wrong things. So we can learn from his lesson is that, Jessica's right. It's that smile on someone's face, or that someone saying, you know what, you really made my day today just by telling me that I looked beautiful, or that you like my hair, or that you served that box at the food pantry with a smile instead of looking down on me, because we have to consider, like that was one of the things that my mom always taught us, is when someone was coming into the food pantry, their shame base and how embarrassed they must feel, and not to disdain them or look down upon them, but for the grace of God, we could be in that, if it were for the grace of God, we could be in that same situation.
Right.
We don't know. So you may be the only loving hand on that person's shoulder or smile to them ever. Like they might come in once a month just to talk to someone, and they don't really need the food, you know? We did have people come into the food pantry and they didn't really need that, but they needed that connection. They needed that community.
Yes.
There's that word again.
Community. Because that isolates people. If they do not feel that sense of community, it just isolates them. And I mean, we could go back to that opens up that door for the enemy to infiltrate. And I mean, all he needs is that slither of an opening, and then it can just snowball. So, and somebody saying to you, like, you were nice to me when nobody else was, or when you didn't have to be.
Right.
Like, that could change somebody's life, or you helped out with this situation when nobody else would, or when I didn't deserve it, you know what I mean? Because that's a lot of things. Like you said, when they walk in there, they're shamed already. That has to be the last resort. Do you think a mom at home who can't get herself where she needs to go wants to let anybody know that that's happening to her?
Exactly.
Or that she can't clean her house?
Or that she doesn't have any diapers and she can't afford to get diapers. What is she supposed to do? Right.
So, I mean, she probably has tried everything as far as even scotch taping something around that child, you know what I mean? So, you have to just go in there with an open mind, and that's another thing. It opens your mind, and it opens your heart more importantly.
Yes.
And that's what the next point was. Volunteering gives hope to those that need it, because unless you have ever been in that dark, deep despair, you don't know how that can affect somebody.
Right.
So your life may be as peachy king as they come. You're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. Life's just rolling all by, roses and whatever.
Right.
Look to your side. Somebody needs you.
Exactly. There's
you.
always somebody who needs us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, look to your left, look to your right. They're there. They're just right there waiting for someone to help them and to show them. I mean, your action may be the event that causes them to think, God's not that bad after all.
Yeah.
Maybe I might try. Maybe I might talk to him. Maybe I might go to church.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And so I remember, this is a long time ago, but it was like, when I was in college, it was the big thing, like go knock on doors and hand out tracts. And I hated that so bad because there's no connection there. And here we were, a bunch of little snooty, little Izod wearing college students. Wearing our little plaid pants and our Izod shirts with a collar up, telling people, here's a tract, you're going to hell and you need Christ.
Yeah.
Like, that did not work at all.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that's not the way Jesus walked around the
No.
earth either,
He didn't have tracts. He wasn't handing out tracts. He was handing out loaves and fishes.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I wanted to say. We were made in His image. His image was to serve. I mean, we were made to serve.
Right.
And you will never find, I hate to say it, but you will never find full fulfillment if you do not have a portion of your life that is serving somebody else.
Right, and I had a point about that. Our pastor just talked about this in John 15, where Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever lives in me and I in him bears much fruit. So how can you tell if you're connected to the vine? You bear fruit and you're a servant, and that's how we're bearing fruit. And Jesus didn't want us to accept him and then just say, okay, one and done, I'm going to heaven. That's
life is good.
No, he was like, you're going to be like me. Jesus said, I came to serve, not to be served.
Right.
And we need to have that same attitude that Christ had, is that I need to be a servant. Because we only have so many years upon this earth. None of us knows how many years we have. And during that time, like what we do with our dash is what's important. And the more that we can help others, the more that we are tapped into the vine and that we're bearing fruit for God. And we have to have a good attitude when we're serving. I want to say that.
And can I say this real quick, because I have this wrote down. Volunteerism opened the door to God for me personally and his blessings. And I want to clarify that. It's not, when I say blessings, I think people, especially outside of the church community, think, well, she's volunteering because she thinks that it's going to help her in some way.
Right.
Like you give in the offering to hope that it blesses you tenfold. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say that I received his blessings, it had nothing to do financially. It was all with a fulfilled heart.
Exactly.
I finally felt like I had a purpose. I finally felt fulfilled.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think of the bearing of fruit when you read that scripture. I just read that the other day as well. I think a lot of times if you're outside of the church community, you can take that scripture and think she wants to bear fruit as in a worldly, earthly way where she gets possessions or this or that. That's not what kind of fruit I want.
Me neither, because that kind of fruit just rots or you have to take care of it.
Yeah, and I'm exhausted.
Right. The more you have, the more you have to take care of. And the fruit that I want is that soul satisfaction.
Yes.
That peace, that knowing that, God, I am doing something to help others, and that just makes me feel blessed.
Yes.
That's the kind of blessed we want to feel.
Yes.
And it's not a prideful blessed.
No.
And it's definitely not like I'm going to get material gain from that.
Right.
It's not that at all. It's just And, you know, it's really, really big in the secular world for people to think that when we talk about blessings that we mean material goods like cars and houses. And that's not what we mean. And I don't think that you can fully understand what that blessing is until you serve.
Yes, until you experience it. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it's funny that you said it's not about pride either. I would challenge everybody, even if you are a die-hard volunteer and do something and don't tell a soul about it.
Exactly.
Don't say a word.
Yep.
Because the person who matters the most already knows you did that.
Right.
I don't know why. It's just me personally, but I think that when people boast about their volunteerism or they boast about what they're doing, I mean, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love to donate. It's the way that fills my cup, and I talk about it. But I find more fulfillment out of it when I do it, and I don't say a word to anybody.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, there's that temptation to let everybody know, because I have been tempted in that way to, you know, be at church and I see all these people doing all of these things and, you know, because they tell you.
Right.
And then wells up within me like, well, I'm going to tell them I did this. And then the Holy Spirit's kind of like, nope. Remember the scripture, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing.
Right.
Because that's not what, it's not about your pride. It's not about self-fulfillment. It's about God fulfillment so that you have purpose.
That's it. You will become fulfilled, but it will not be because of you.
Yes,
So
exactly.
So no, I'm glad you said that. That just, I had that light bulb moment, because that's a perfect way to say that. When you're talking about self-fulfillment, it's not coming from you at all.
Right.
Like, sure, when I volunteer, I get fulfilled, but it's not me.
Right.
At all.
It's God.
Yeah, absolutely. So I challenge everybody, even if it's your first time, try it and don't say anything to anybody.
Right. I would say that too. And don't forget to sit down if you've never volunteered for anything. And I would say this is a really great message for people who are becoming empty nesters too.
Yeah.
Maybe you spent your whole life raising your children and now they've all moved away and graduated college and got married and you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs and you're like, okay, what can I do? Well, sit down and write down those strengths that you have and those things that you like to do. And maybe those things that you like to do with your children, you can actually go be someone that ministers to other children who don't have that person in their life.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm telling you, the schools, I will say it again, they're hard up. I had my face deep into it whenever my kids were in elementary school, and we had a very hard time finding somebody outside of our circle to help, because I mean, my kids went to a low income school that was stricken by poverty and substance abuse and kids from hard places, and we just could not get the bodies that we needed to do the things that we needed. So I'm telling you, even if you don't have a kid in school, call the Board of Education and say, hey, listen, I have time.
Right.
What can I do to help?
What can I do to help?
Because it's not getting any better.
Right.
With the way that we speak about opioid addiction a lot on in our inside of our house, because it's a problem that I think my kids are going to have to deal with, is a sense, and we're losing entire generations to it.
Yes.
And then you're going to start seeing it's generational. We've already seen that.
Yes.
But it's going to continue to be worse. So we have to prep. We have to prep now for it.
Right.
And try to turn the corner. We have to try to turn that, and that one smile that you may offer that kid that sees no hope whatsoever, may go home and say, you know what? Why did that person smile at me, or what was that?
Right.
And that may open up the opportunity for them to hear the voice, because the Holy Spirit is always with you, but hear the voice. Especially a young innocent child.
Right, and I've talked to a lot of adults who were foster kids. In fact, we have an interview with one that's coming up in November, and I always find that every single one who has been successful navigating their adult life had that one person who smiled at them Or that one person, like Juan Arturo talked about, there was one person in the grocery store when he was 5 years old who said something really pleasant and positive to him. And that stuck with him.
Yep.
It stuck and stuck and stuck until he could get to the point where he could pursue hope and healing for himself. So you have no idea.
Absolutely none. And the Board of Education or a place like that is probably not going to turn down any help that they can get.
Right.
You have to take a course. You have to maybe a background check, but
You might have to get a shot.
yeah, but they'll let you right in there because they need the help. They know that the desperate times that we are in, and our administrators, our teachers, they're all suffering. You know,
Right.
I come from, public school. My kids have always been in public school, and it's a bad time to be a teacher. You see a lot of them retiring because
Yeah.
it's too much on their plate. So
Right.
if you have an inkling for that at all, I urge you to seek that out.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Whole House podcast, and we will see you next week.
Have a great day.
We're so glad you could join us here for the Whole House podcast. Please subscribe, and if you give us a review, we might pick our favorite and send you a prize. Please remember to like the Whole House Facebook page and follow us on Instagram at _whole_house. And please sign up with your email on our website, thewholehouse.org, to be notified when new things are happening here at the Whole House. Thanks so much for listening.